Hello and welcome back to my studio. Today I'm going to be sharing some experimentation with line and wash flower painting. So using a black waterproof fine liner to create the line work drawing for the painting and then painting very loosely over it. I want to try and get into flower painting again. It's something that I'm sort of struggling with at the moment, but really want to learn how to progress a little bit further with my flower painting. So the best way to do that is just to wade in and not worry about things being perfect. Just give it a go and just keep trying and practicing, finding out what I like about the painting, what I don't like, and then making changes as I move forward to the next painting. So the first thing to do is to draw out my foxgloves, because that's what I'm painting today, these beautiful pink foxgloves. So using a big chunky carpenter's pencil, I'm just roughing out the sketch and I'm literally really drawing it very loosely, looking at the overall shapes, the simplified shapes of the leaves, the flowers, the buds, the stems, that sort of thing. And then, without being too pedantic, when I'm reasonably happy with the pencil sketch, and I think it looks okay, I'm going to go over it with my Faber-Castell Artist Pitt pens. Waterproof fine liners, I'm using a 0.5mm here, and then I'll use a grade C, which is a chisel-tipped calligraphy nib, which is a lot wider and will give me some nice darks. I'm not trying to get a true botanical representation of these foxgloves, but I do want them to look like foxgloves. So I'm trying to create the impression through observing the shapes of the leaves, the shapes of the flowers, the shapes of the stems themselves, and the way the buds grow out from the stem, but without being too bogged down by being perfect. I don't mind if my marks look a bit wrong in places. I don't mind if I make a few mistakes. This is an exploration, and sort of sketchy mistakes can add to the charm of a painting if you sort of incorporate them into the painting itself. So my line work is just about done, and I've decided to go with using some convenience greens for this, and a few colours, just keeping it very limited. So I'm going to be using sap green and perylene green, lemon yellow, and I've got some opera rose and some permanent rose as well. Opera rose can be quite a fugitive colour. In other words, it's not very light fast, but I do like it. So I'm going to just mix it with permanent rose, which, as the name suggests, is a more permanent colour. So I'm wetting my page here and there around the flowers first, not all over. I'm leaving some dry patches as well as the wet patches. This hopefully will give me some soft and hard edges. And now I want to start off going in with some really light green. So I'm mixing some sap green with my lemon yellow, and I shall begin to dot the paint around here and there to try and build up a little bit of a washy, loose background. And I'll be deliberately painting outside of the lines, not in the lines, but I'll be avoiding some of the most prominent foxglove bells or little glove flowers with these greens, so that I can get some nice clean sort of pinks and yellows into them. This, of course, is the wet in wet technique. Everything's softening and diffusing, and it's just a lot of fun to experiment like this. Just trying to sort of gradually build up the background in the first layer. The other technique you'll see me use throughout this is using a fan brush and spattering in the same colours here and there, just to produce more random sort of washy effects. I hope you can see that I'm taking my time using a tissue to dab out any colour that's a little bit too strong, just slowly building up a little bit more tone and value in the leaves, and beginning to bring in that lovely pink colour to the little foxglove flowers and here and there in the buds. This is a small round brush and I can use it just to put in a few sort of random leaf shapes or to pick out some of the bells a little more. Dotting in maybe a little bit of pink into the wet paint so it sort of runs and softens where the buds are. As I say, for me it's important at the moment that I try and paint outside of the lines to a certain extent, and this gives me that lovely loose effect that can be quite ethereal and very charming, very kind of cottagecore if you like that sort of aesthetic. Well, I'm not sure whether my colours here are ideal for a finished painting. I think they're absolutely ideal to experiment with because I don't have to think too much about mixing them. I can just dive straight into the colours and apply them. The Perylene green gives me my darks, the sap green gives me my mid-greens, and if I add lemon yellow to it I get lighter greens. Of course my opera rose and permanent rose are giving me my pink colours, and that's being slightly modified and sort of just given a little hint of sort of orange where it mixes with the lemon yellow. I'm going to just keep working into the washes. Everything's still damp, so nothing's too dry at the moment, especially the leaves where I've been working into them. I can just keep either spattering in some more darks. The Perylene green does dry back a lot lighter, but I'm not quite sure what I want the leaves to look like in this experiment. So I'll just play around with a few different effects. Again, using a tissue to sort of dab out a few softer marks, softening a few edges. So this experiment is seeing what happens. It's asking questions. What happens if I do this? What happens if I add that? What happens if I remove that back again and soften it or add some more dark? And that's how I am thinking all the way through an experiment like this. But it's also stimulating other ideas. I'm getting lots of ideas about slightly more sophisticated palettes that I could use for this that I think would work a little bit better than using this very simple palette here. I can scrape through the damp paint with my palette knife to produce some highlights, maybe the effect of some veins catching the light on the leaves, or just a few little stems and paler highlights on the foxgloves themselves. Anything goes really, whatever I think that I feel like doing with this little study, then I'm doing it. There's no wrong or right way for this. This is like pushing ideas and just seeing what happens and seeing how it ends up. And what this will do is sort of give me a base point, if you see what I mean. This is where I'm at with my flower painting, and this base point is where I want to be able to sort of move on and progress from. Now that the painting is mostly dry, I'm using a small calligraphy brush and I'm painting some of the bells in using the wet on dry method. So this time I am painting in the lines just for these slightly stronger pinks, just to add a bit more definition to some of the larger flowers. If I zoom in, I hope you can see what I'm doing. I'm trying not to detract from the looseness, the sort of splashy washes that I've already got, but just bringing, as I say, a little bit more definition to the main flowers. I'm now adding more darks to my leaves with my perylene green. And I'm really liking the way it looks at the moment. Now that I'm watching this back and doing the voiceover, then I think that I should have left the leaves like this. The slightly harder edges for some of the darker leaves really do contrast very well against the rest of the painting. But as this was an experiment, and sometimes when you're in the middle of painting, you kind of have something in mind that you're trying to strive towards. And I think I wanted more light, more glow in the leaves. I didn't want it to be too dark. So I removed some of that dark tone. And I think the painting is, or the experimental sketch is just a little bit less finished because of that. Because now the leaves, towards the end of the painting, you'll see shortly that the leaves end up looking, as they dry back and as I dab out a little bit of the colour, they end up looking a bit mid-value. And of course, if everything's a bit mid-value, it can look flat. So I think that my painting has ended up looking a little bit flat because I wasn't brave enough to really push those values and shadows in the leaves. I think this is where it lightens up a bit, because by tapping in more sort of lemon yellow spatter, it lightens up a lot of those values. But hindsight is the best sight, and I do think I find it very useful sometimes filming myself, because I can look back and see exactly the point at which something either looks wonderful or something goes wrong. And so even if you don't want to film yourself for anything like YouTube, I think it's really useful if you've got a camera phone to film yourself painting, and then you can watch it back, and it can be a real eye-opener as to your process and as to some stages and ideas that you can really push forward with, and other points at which you can begin to learn to avoid. So taking a look at this little painting, I'm really pleased with it. The values aren't dark enough, but the colours, whilst being crude, have worked fairly well. So this is a great point for me to step off from and start experimenting some more. Try using some different colours, mixing my own greens, trying to see what other colours would work, how I can push this idea forward, and of course refining my drawing a little bit whilst still keeping it loose. So let me know what you think, if you like this approach and if you experiment like this yourself. If you don't, then I'd suggest it as a wonderful way to explore possibilities and to find out what works and what doesn't work. So thank you so much for watching. Please leave us a like and subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. And thank you so much to everyone that supports us on Patreon. I'll see you again soon. Take care and happy painting. Bye.